not slow-mo. Greetings. Welcome to the Garden of Eden. As you know, sustainability is extremely important to me, and there are many facets that go into sustainability. One of the most commonly sort of known facets of a sustainable life is obviously growing food. But how do you grow sustainable food? Well, there's a lot of facets again to just the depth of sustainable food production. And I wanted to share with you a really cool, really efficient, super sustainable, and highly effective technique for growing food, a facet of the growing food. And as you can see right now, I am standing on top of a bunch of black tarps. Now this doesn't look particularly beautiful, and it doesn't even look like it would have much to do with growing food. But the truth is that this is actually a key critical component in preparation for growing food. So right now we're coming close to the end of the winter, and these black tarps that I'm standing on, number one, were salvaged from waste, salvaged from trash. These are actually old billboard tarps. And so these are actually the back sides of the tarps, and the back sides are black. And what we're doing is we're laying these black tarps over the ground come fall, sort of the end of our growing season. And the reason why we're doing that is because, one, there's all sorts of weeds, there's all sorts of seeds, things that we planted, things that we didn't plant. And what most traditional farming does is they either burn the crops, or two, they do a bunch of tilling. We don't like to do either of those things. One, burning is potentially dangerous. Two, you're destroying, microbes in the soil, all sorts of potentially beneficial things as well as getting rid of the things that you don't want. We don't like to do the tilling because realistically it's either extremely hard to do by hand, or two, you have to use a machine, and machines are made in factories and they run on petroleum, etc., etc. So what we do is we cover the ground with these tarps, and because it's black, number one, it's going to kill any roots and weeds and stuff like that is underground. Because there's no oxygen, it's going to suffocate and kill plants, and it's going to decompose, right? It's going to decompose the seeds and the like all this stuff. This is just old. This is old plants that would otherwise be covering the ground, but it's getting decomposed into the soil underneath these black tarps. So when it comes springtime, we're able to pull up these tarps, and underneath here is going to be super rich soil that doesn't have seeds and weeds and roots and plants that we don't want to be there. So it's basically like a clean slate, right? We're creating ourselves a clean slate for planting in the spring. So we'll be able to just pull these off, and we won't have a bunch of weeds to pull up. We won't have a bunch of rogue seeds, and transplants that we don't want there. And we'll just be able to, dig our row, plant our seeds, and then we'll have crops that, will grow without any, outside influence that we don't want. Another potential thing that you actually could do as well, if you have a bunch of weed problems, is you could even, poke a little hole in the black tarp and plant the seed, and the roots would still grow in there. And then you wouldn't have all the weeds that would be growing up around those crops. So some types of farming actually does utilize a similar technique. Here, it's not really a good idea in Texas because it's so freaking hot. Lots of plants don't even grow in the summertime because it's so hot, and this would just make it even hotter. So it's not really a realistic or practical solution for us. We utilize mulching instead. Once we plant our crops, we lay down a bunch of mulch so that weeds don't start growing around those crops. It takes a lot of work to mulch, every single row, but so does weeding. And weeding is something you're going to have to do every day, and it steals the nutrients from your plants. Plus, the mulching keeps the heat off of the soil, and it also helps keep the water in. So that's what we do. So here, the springtime is going to be happening here pretty soon. We'll be able to just pull off all these tarps. We'll be able to plant in a clean slate soil, super rich. All the nutrients will be, composted in, and we won't have anything to deal with that we don't want. So I hope that this technique is valuable to you. I hope that you learned something. More importantly, I hope that you experiment with growing your own food. Until next time, steam on. Bless.